Good morning, everyone. Oh, I see. I can take it off. So, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our session, Technology-Based Sign Language Solutions. Have you ever asked an 18-year-old where he or she gets his information, the news, the latest things he wants to know? I have. I've asked my son and got an amazing answer. You wouldn't believe it. So, where do they get information, news? From the newspapers? No, of course not. No one reads newspapers, physical papers anymore. But is it Google? Is it YouTube? What do you think? The answer for this question is, it is YouTube. All young people, 18 or younger, who can hear, will use YouTube to get their information. It might be fake news, as we know, but that's the news channel for the young generation. And that's not all, but the second interesting question is, how many information is on YouTube? I will come back to this later. But first of all, let me introduce our panel. We have now Sebastien from France, Maria Diaz from Spain, Yoshio Shinoda from Japan, and Nick Delahant from South Africa. So we are really an international panel, and we will get to know some of their solutions. My name is Helmut Ludwar. I'm from SignTime in Vienna, Austria. And SignTime is an expert in translating text into sign language using technology. We are using an avatar, so it is avatar-based, but also we have developed a tool that helps the deaf translators to do their work. So technology is key. Now I'm coming back to my question I had before. How many information is on YouTube per day? We can't talk about per day. We need to talk about per minute. And you won't believe it, but it is 500 hours per minute that is uploaded, that finds a user that is interesting, so it is really a lot. And that's not enough. We have also, if we are just talking about German speaking, we have 130 TV stations, German-speaking TV stations, 500 radio broadcasters, 400 newspapers, 75,000 books per year. So there's a lot of information. To make all of this barrier-free, we cannot rely on humans. Of course, we need interpreters in some situation, we will hear it later. But we will also need technology that helps the translation of sign language. That's the only way to make the world barrier-free. So let's start. We are in this business, but also the four panelists. And let's start with Sebastien. He has developed a dictionary in French Sign Language, but I believe it will be soon in other countries and other languages. So, Sebastien, please tell us, the stage is yours.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Helmut. So first of all, I should say that I'm very pleased to be here today, and in the name of the team, I should say that we are very glad to join the Zero project community. My name is Sebastien. I'm a 46-year-old man, and I wear a beard. And so today I'm here to speak about sign language and Elix, what we do with Elix. First of all, a few words about SignTime. SignTime is a non-profit organization that specializes in universal design and accessibility. And we work on these features for persons with disabilities. We provide access to information, culture, reading, learnings, and we have been doing this since almost 20 years. SignTime, it's a 26-member team, a team of 26 members, and we have more than 2,000 partners, such as NGO, companies, universities, public organizations, libraries, museums. And each year we have 150,000 users of our different solutions and activities. Our main brand are Elix, the topic of the day, I will speak after, but also EJIA, Édition Jeunesse Accessible. It's what we do to make books accessible to children from 3 to 12-year-olds. And so we develop spaces in libraries to make these books accessible and for these children to discover literacy. We have also Ben le Koala. Ben le Koala is a little character that teach children from 2 to 6, autistic children, but every children, to learn how to brush teeth, how to wear shoes, how to wash your hands, thanks to videos and books. So it's a global learning solution. And another brand, Maîtrise ton web, that teach, it's a serious game that teaches children how to understand how social media works. It's completely accessible for every children from 9 to 13. At SignTime, we really consider handicap as a way to create innovation and solution useful to everyone. So Elix, our experiences in French Sign Language. We have been working on this topic for 20 years, and we organize, for example, visit in French Sign Language in museum. We also train people and sensibilize people on French Sign Language in companies, public organizations. So we have great expertise in sign language, and we created Elix 10 years ago. I will give detail just after. And we have just created 2 training and sensibilization on French Sign Language with Elix Academy. Elix Academy is an e-learning solution to learn French Sign Language. And we also, with the brand Elix, we also publish books and games in French Sign Language. We have more than 20 titles and more than 3,000 sales each year. So Elix, what it is? Elix is a dictionary that we created 10 years ago. A dictionary such as a website and a web app, free. You can download it freely. And then Elix has been created to make written language accessible to deaf people. We all know that when your first language, your mother tongue is sign language, it may be difficult to access to written language. And so, thanks to this dictionary, you can type a word in a search bar and you will get the definition of this word in sign language with a video, and you will get the sign. And so it's easier to understand written language with that. We created, to go further, we created the Elix bubble 3 years ago to make the web accessible in sign language. That is to say, imagine you are on a website, you are reading a newspaper, and you don't understand a word. You just do right-click on this word, and it will call directly the dictionary, and you will get the translation in a video of this word. So it's easier. You don't have to leave the page you are reading to get the information. And Elix Academy I just spoke about it before, Elix Academy, an e-learning solution we developed during the COVID crisis. So Elix, the goal of Elix is to make the world and the web sign language friendly. So a website with a dictionary, an app, and a browser extension. The browser extension, you can get it freely. You download it, and it works on Google Chrome, on Safari, on Edge, and it's completely free. Our goal is to, with Elix, is to lexicalize sign language and make it accessible to all. It's to help deaf people who use sign language to have access to reading and make the web accessible in sign language. Our action is to, at the moment, is to translate French definition into sign language, collect signs among the signing community in France, about 100,000, 120,000 people, deaf people using sign language in France, and about 300,000 people using sign language. And our last action is to develop services that use this content. So Elix in France is the unique dictionary in sign language that can do polysemy, definition, and collection of sign, multi-thematic too, and it's a collaborative dictionary. A few figures, we have 6,000 visits a day, we have 100,000 users, and we have 50,000 videos in French Sign Language on the website and on the app. And our next step is to double the content in French Sign Language, to redesign the back office. And why redesign the back office? Because we want to prepare the multilingual, as said Helmut, the multilingual version, to develop Elix worldwide. So if you look at these figures, you see that 70 million people use sign language in the world, and so we want to adapt Elix in other language. And to get that done, we need to redesign the back office, we need to launch the multilingual version, and to create sign language and engage contributors. So our needs, of course, we need funds, but we also, and it's very important for us, we need strategic partnership to get content, to get communication, network, new services, and we need skill-based sponsorship to develop Elix worldwide. That is our main goal, for the next 3 years. So for further information, you can get on the website, you can get the demonstration of the Elix bubble, and you can get on the dictionary. You have the website address here, and we can keep in touch. My name is in the app of the Zero project, and so we'd be very pleased to discuss with you after and to see how we could work together to make every language accessible in sign language. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sebastien. Now we have some time for a few questions. Any questions you have? I would like to know, you have talked about supporting the learning of sign language, and you have referenced books and games. So can you tell us a little bit more about this?
Yes, we work on access to reading, as I said, and so we created books with stories you can use in sign language to communicate with young children from 2 to 3 years old, and communicate before and make it possible to learn sign language. So these few titles allows that, and we create games such as it's like a UNO, U-N-O, a game with cards, and so you can learn sign language, and you can give I don't know the English word, défi to the others by using these cards. So it's a way to make deaf people and hearing people get together, play together, and we organize in Lille, in the north of France, where we are. We organize nights during, and during these nights we play with these cards and in cafes. We have people, hearing people and deaf people playing together. And it's important to us to get people together.
Yeah, sounds great. Any questions? Yes, please.
Hi, it's Lorenzo from Italy. I have one question regarding the different, let's say, accent or version of sign language. Because in Italy, when we tried to create a dictionary, there was an issue of different signs from different regions. How do you handle the different sign, let's say the dialect, let's call it the dialect of sign language?
I didn't hear.
So the question is, if I understand it right, about the dialects of sign language. How do you cope if you're developing a lexicon? How do you manage the dialects?
We work with the community. We work with deaf people directly. We are in touch with them, and so sometimes we have different signs for the same word. In the north of France, it may be different than in the south of France, and we include the two meanings and the two signs, and we work very closely with a deaf community. But you are right, sometimes it's different from the north and the south. You have French Sign Language in Quebec, you have French Sign Language in French Belgium, and sometimes it's different. And so we try to manage these differences.
Okay, thank you, Sebastien. Anything else? Okay, so then thank you very much for this first technology supporting deaf persons with a dictionary. Now we have a different technology that helps people to get to easier to interpreters. And even if I, in my introduction, have said we need electronic and technology-based ways to produce sign language, it is still important that we have humans, human interpreters in certain situations. But as we all know, it is hard to get access to them. So let's hear what Concepción has developed in this area. She is a deaf person and will be interpreted. So Concepción, the stage is yours.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for being here. I'm going to be signing in Spanish sign language. I want to thank the organization, the UN, and the Zero Project to acknowledge our work towards the spread of sign language. I came from Spain, as I've mentioned. My name is Concepción. I'm the president of the National Confederation of the Deaf in Spain and its foundation as well. And this foundation, it's created back in 1998 in order to remove the barriers that deaf people we find in society in Spain. We work with a network of regional federations in our country, and we aim to deaf people and to carry out initiatives for deaf people and the families, and in every field, education, training, employment, in order to give information throughout technology. And just because, just Helmut has said, we are eager to use technologies in order to remove our communication barriers as deaf people. We are based in Madrid. You can get into our website and look around. I'm sure it will be very interesting. And I'm here to present a project, a service actually called SVisual. This is the sign name. And SVisual is the first VRS and VRI interpretation service that makes communication between deaf and hearing people accessible via video calls and VRI interpretation. SVisual is born in 2009, and before that, we developed a couple of years, maybe 3 years of research in order to come up with this service, which is funded by both public and private organizations. SVisual works via different devices. Nowadays, we can use different devices like computers, tablets, video, smartphones, and SVisual allows that kind of communication, meaning that a deaf person makes a video call, so a video interpreter makes the call and interprets it to a deaf, from the deaf person to the hearing person, administration, organization. And as I've mentioned before, it's a VRS service, but also it has its VRI modality, which is very well spread and used, especially in the healthcare system. The deaf person can access to this free of charge service, which works 24 hours a day, 360 days a year, thanks to this network that I've mentioned before, spread throughout the country. So the deaf person can use, as I've mentioned earlier, a tablet, a smartphone, both in iOS or Android system, and they can get to the SVisual app, so it's very intuitive, very easy to use, and also SVisual allows us to use the sign language option, which is the most chosen by most of the users. Actually, 90% of deaf users will use this option. But also they can use the sign and voice or even written text thanks to a chat system. You can see in the slide the late numbers regarding the use of SVisual, which is over 1 million calls received in more than 11 years of the service, which proves that the deaf persons trust in the service, they will use it, and even the number of users will increase every year because deaf people are learning to use it, they gain in autonomy, so especially during the pandemic, in the first hard lockdown, where nothing were physical regarding the attention of services, and everything went via telephone services. SVisual saw how its use were increased by deaf people who were able to manage their daily issues via these very accessible video interpreting services. They even could call the hospitals to check on the families, call the banks, every service that they would use, they could via SVisual. As I've mentioned before, over 1 million calls were received in over 11 years of SVisual existence. It's key to say that SVisual is not the same as other platforms like Skype or even WhatsApp, because it complies with the security iOS 27001 law, which guarantees the security of information of the calls and their confidentiality and privacy. That being said, is especially important for us to keep this privacy in order to also be able to adapt to every single need of the variety within the deaf community. It's now a very important moment, not only in Spain, but in Europe, when we're talking about the digital transformation. Deaf people, we don't want to be left behind. We want to be active participants of this digital transformation that we're going through. So we can actively be participants in every communication event that is going on. But as I've mentioned earlier in my presentation, free of charge. So this service is funded by both public and private organization. We want to offer the two modalities, the VRS, but also the VRI modality. So as deaf persons, we can go physically to any administrations, and we can use the VRI modality, so we don't have to go alone with a physical interpreter, but we can use as visual in order to have a remote interpreter. As visual is a very innovative system and service in our country, and we want to spread it out through the different regions of our country. Now we have more than 32 hospitals in Spain and in emergency rooms that are using the VRI modality of as visual, but also in its VRS modality, deaf people can manage their IRS issues, they can talk to their banks, their electricity and water companies, and it's also provide by as visual contact with the police and the telephone number 016, which is regarding to the domestic violence, and also the emergency number 112, etc. Of course, we want to be a service free of charge for every deaf person. We are increasing the number of the video interpreters and also upgrading the very technology of S-Visual. Since it gives the double modality, the VRS, but also the VRI modality, it's been proven that it's more economical for administrations and organizations because they don't have to hire or pay for an individual interpret, but they can hire this visual VRI modality, so they can have an interpreter 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And also, as visual is bidirectional, meaning that the deaf person can use it to call hearing people, but the other way around as well. And what are the next steps? Now, we have been imposed by these pandemic times the use of apps. In this case, this visual provides a virtual interpreter, so they can work wherever they are, from their homes into any field that they are required. It's also being used by deaf-blind people via the chat system, so it's adapted to their needs, and it's very important for us during this pandemic world we have been living for the past 2 years to create a coronavirus info button for telephone contact with health administrations. This visual is being developed within the deaf community, not only with the National Confederation of Deaf and its foundation, but also in cooperation with the deaf regional federations all throughout the country, who have been collaborating with us, providing their interpreters, and gradually every single regional administration, but also the state administration, are having S-Visual in their attention services in order for us, deaf people, to have the same rights as citizens. And other issue that is key for us is the legislation. In concordance with the UNCRPD, we want our legislation in Spain to be developed in depth, but also go along with the economical budget, because the law of goods and products says that they have to be accessible, so they should also have S-Visual in order for them to be accessible. Summing up, we have to work in technology, always following the improvements and also the political work, our work as lobby in order to make a society accessible, in order for them, the administrations, to fund these kind of services, but also the private organizations, and to have an upgrade platform such as visual technologically, but also having in mind the problems that may arise and that deaf people can inform us about. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much for this presentation. As always, we have some time for a short question. Please.
Well, my name is Masahito Kawamori from the International Telecommunication Union. I'd like to congratulate the presenter that the deaf community promotes this kind of technology on their own, and it's a very recommendable action. And I have several questions about this service. The first one is about the funding scheme. How does the government support, or any public institution support this kind of service? And especially when VRS is usually considered as part of telecommunication service, while VRI is not. So I'm wondering how this can be done. Another one is about also related to the difference between VRS and VRI, because usually in many countries, VRS is supported by some sort of public funding scheme with some legal background in telecommunication, whereas VRI is more or less private services and not directly supported by telecommunication scheme. So I'm just wondering how this can be done in Spain, and will be very interesting to know. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your very good questions. I'm aware that it's different in every country. In Spain, the Spanish government and the public administration are competent in every field, employment, education, everything. So the administration, have a lot of numbers that should be available for every citizen, including deaf people. It's the very same in the regions, different regions. Hearing people call to administration to resolve various topics. Deaf people have to be able to do the same. So administrations, they should make their phones available also for us, for deaf people. It's their job, so to speak. It should be mandatory, actually it is, for them to have their goods and services available for every citizen, also us. And in the rest of the funding, regarding the funding, we have different agreements with private organizations, companies, to make this service available. But regarding the platform, the technological platform, we were a couple of years or 3 years doing the research. Also, the industry minister gave us the funding to do this research, to translate it into Spanish necessities, and then we started the service as a project in the very early stages. And then in the national government, we get an agreement with the national government. They have to comply with it. We got, now we have around 750,000 euros every year in order to support this service. So me, as a deaf person, I can call my doctor, I can call the school of my kids, they can call me back, and we have this national public funding, and then every minister should be able to fund also this service in order to make their services, their goods, their phones available for us. So, for instance, equality minister, they have different goods, different services, different numbers they offer to all society. They are responsible to make them accessible for everyone, including us deaf people. But of course, this is a very hard work of political influence. It's very important, our roles are civic organizations, because of course there are laws and administration, they have to do some things, but it's important for us to play our lobby roles. In Spain, we have very important, very international companies, like, for instance, Iberdrola is one of them, and it provides the electricity and lights and light to the
sorry
houses.
to interrupt.
And they have to make their services available, because law is actually mandatory for everyone. Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. We don't have too many time for these questions, so please come together after the session and answer the rest, please.
Sure.
Okay? If this is okay. So thank you very much. And we will come to the next solution, which is also special. It is about TV, and TV is important. I like TV because it is well-researched information. It is something we need. It is real news, not fake news. So it is important that we have TV programs also for deaf persons in sign language. Now we will hear from Yoshio, and Yoshio, the stage is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm Yoshio Shinoda, a newscaster of Okayama Broadcasting Corporation, or OHK for short, a local TV station in Japan. We have been using sign language broadcasting for about 30 years in order to realize a society in which no one is left behind by lack of information. Today, I'd like to explain our Okayama model, which we have constructed to popularize sign language and realize societies with zero barriers throughout the world. Please watch this video. We launched the TV program on sign language called Sign Language Talks Welfare in 1993. We wondered if it would be possible to broadcast our interviews with deaf people. Since then, the newscasters in our company have continued to learn sign language. We have also aired about 300 10-minute feature segments, created deaf people concerning disability in our news programs. The program carries superimposed sign language interpretations, which are provided by the deaf members of our production team. We have thus promoted different efforts, not only as a broadcaster, but also as users. One of these efforts was our innovative major campaign named Sign Language is a Language campaign. We used this campaign last year as part of the United Nations International Day of Sign Language. This campaign comprised 4 parts: a news program, a special TV program, a special commercial message, and webcasting. By making the circumstances and society that uses sign language routinely, the deaf can access information more easily. These enterprising and innovative efforts are based on our strong belief in a world with 0 barriers. I'd like to bring your attention to this picture. This is our TV studio, which is named Miru. The name means to see and to be seen in Japanese. This studio is in the middle of a large shopping complex in Okayama. Don't you think this situation literally means 0 barriers? Sign language is also incorporated into our program, Nanshon and Kusukusu. We have been trying to represent the possibility of sign language as a language with sign language talks welfare. The program carries superimposed sign language interpretations, which are provided by the deaf members of our production team. And this is the first feature of our Okayama model. We have an organization named OHK Sign Language Broadcasting Committee. The committee consists of the deaf, sign language interpreters, and broadcasters. It's our mission to convey information promptly and accurately. Unlike as a media like newspapers, we are a media whose programs can be watched normally only once. So we have created many expressions that can be used easily on TV. These kinds of committees can help TV stations improve their sign language broadcasting. Looking now at the second feature of Okayama model. As I'm sure you know, the production costs of sign language broadcasting are high. So I came up with following idea. We display the name of companies which sponsor our sign language broadcasting. By incorporating sponsorship into the circle of economic activities, we can make it sustainable. More importantly, using sign language on TV will show everybody that they are here, they have rights, and they have own language. This attitude symbolized our belief that we will never leave people behind through a lack of information, whatever their disabilities. The third feature of Okayama model is a remote sign language translation system using ICTs. I first thought of this after a disaster in Okayama 4 years ago, when some deaf evacuees couldn't get information. The need for such system became even clearer during the pandemic, with people wearing masks. The deaf cannot read people's lips. There are also concerns about interpreters next to the speakers not wearing masks. This system makes it possible for deaf people to safely access vital public health information at the same time as hearing people. We put a big screen next to the speaker instead of interpretation. I show live streaming of multiple interpreters at a distant location. Live streaming is our field of expertise as a broadcasting company. This system was first introduced at the mayor's press conference in Soja City and was later used in other cities. Aiko Akiyama from SCAP wants to recommend this system to the United Nations for use in the Asia-Pacific region. To develop it further, we signed a joint research agreement on accessible broadcasting with Keio University. Our first objective is to make weather forecast more accessible using computer-generated animations of sign language. Our goal is to make it possible for every single person with or without disabilities to access all the information we deliver. We strongly believe in reducing the gap of access to information in all regions. Thank you again for the award. We look forward to joining with you all and creating a world with zero barriers for everyone. Thank you. ありがとう。
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For the presentation. Unfortunately, the time is a little bit low now. So I would suggest that if you have questions, please ask it directly to Yoshido after the session. And without any ado, I will go immediately to the next speaker, which is coming to us virtually from South Africa. It is Nick, and he will tell us about his solution about translating complicated text. Nick, the stage is yours.
Hello, everyone.
And I have to say, you have 8 minutes, okay?
Okay. Can you hear me? Hello? Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for the invitation. Welcome to everyone. Greetings from sunny South Africa. I'm going to speak about WeSignIt. It is a translation tool making organizational content accessible to the deaf. You can please move to the next slide for me. So my name is Nick, as I've mentioned. My company is a company called Widgetal, and we created South Africa's first sign language app called FingerTalk, which was a sign language dictionary. We specifically focus on social innovation, education, and disability empowerment, with the key belief that all business should focus on the social upliftment of human conditions. Please move on. So in South Africa, we unfortunately sit with quite a large number of deaf people. And unfortunately, what we're experiencing here is that deaf people find themselves in unnecessary debt due to not understanding contractual obligations and terms and conditions. Because, and it's been mentioned before in the session, the deaf people do not read the way that hearing people do. So they're often left out of mainstream communication and are left behind when it comes to important product information and key health information. We find key areas where the deaf are struggling in South Africa is access to communication in the education space, employment and labor, key health information, specifically around HIV/AIDS and COVID, governmental communication, transport, financial, retail, and telecommunications, as well as things like rental contracts as a basic example. To address these, we found in our research that obviously, and it's been mentioned again as well in the session, that content needs to be made available to the deaf in their terms, in their mother tongue, and which should allow for informed decision making and the ability to know when taking up contractual obligations and the ability to then adhere to those obligations. Next slide, please. So this is where We Sign It comes in. We Sign It is a mobile app that translates organizational written content into pre-recorded sign language videos. It will be available on the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store in the coming few weeks. We're targeting an April release in South Africa and then launching globally as well. Please move on. So basically what happens with our app is that users will scan a QR code that accompanies a piece of content. So in this example, it is a terms and conditions on the MTN website, which is a national carrier in South Africa, a telecoms carrier. We are currently in talks with them to potentially partner, and this is the type of example that we use when discussing with them. This is how the app would work. A user would scan that code, and they would be presented with a sign language recording, a sign language video of that content. And the benefit here is that the app translates that content into SASL, and it creates inclusion for the deaf, and it allows the users to also store that scan history for future reference to go and review those terms or any content that they've scanned and viewed, across the board. It has a glossary feature, so we're focusing on language development as well, and this is specific to South Africa at the moment, but we will be launching globally, which would help any sign language to be able to be developed further by adding dictionary content or adding glossary terms to that language. We're also looking at one of the benefits is also job creation. So by hiring signers and interpreters to help us create that content. Our content is also endorsed by Deaf SA, the official deaf body in South Africa. So within South Africa, we aim to go live in the coming months. As I've mentioned, we're targeting an April launch. We offer 2 services. We offer content translation and creation, as well as the platform services. Organizations are welcome to create their own content as long as it is endorsed by the deaf body in that area. We're in talks with the South African government currently to undergo a project that will translate massive key communication or governmental communication into sign language and have it added to our platform. We're targeting government and state-owned enterprises, as well as key leaders in industries such as our retail space, our insurance, our banking, our telecoms, education, and employment. We are ready for a global rollout. We will not be offering content creation services, unfortunately, because we are not specialists in other sign language, in other forms of sign language, only in South Africa. So we'll only be providing the hosting of those videos on our platform via the mobile app. We're looking for a rollout partner in each territory. So if anybody is interested, please speak to me afterwards. We would also need an endorsement partner in each of those territories as well that would endorse that content prior to it going live on the platform. We aim for a Q3 2022 launch, because of some features that need to be built, but we are ready to scale globally at the moment. Our possibilities are definitely endless with this type of application because it can be used for any form of content, not just health and governmental communication. My name is Nick. You can please speak to me at any time after the presentation. Thank you. Was that fast enough?
Okay, thank you very much, Nick. You really made the time I was suggesting. So thank you very much for that. If you have questions for Nick, please use the email address, the contact. Please get in contact with him. He told you what he's looking for. So even though it is a virtual presentation, use this time to contact him. Which is also true for all the other presenters, which I would like to thank you again. Thank you very much. Please use the time and the possibilities of this conference, get in contact and speak with them. Thank you very much and have a nice day.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.